Thinking atomically will radically change the way you approach content creation as a personal brand. But let's take a step back. What does atomic even mean? I've spent thousands of hours researching this atomic concept and how it could relate to content creation. I read books, consumed many YouTube videos, and even took online courses. However, most of the information I found was related to applying this concept to self-improvement and personal knowledge management. For example, in the book Atomic Habits, James Clear refers to how the smallest actions over time can create a massive impact on your life. And so when we say something is atomic, we're talking about how even the smallest entity can have a big impact. Atomic also refers to something that exists either alone or in combination, which is literally the definition of atom. And in fact, you can think atomically and generate endless connections with the ideas you generate, but only a fully formed thought can become an atomic idea. An atomic idea is a simple yet crystal clear idea that anyone could understand, even if you take this idea out of its original context. Atomic ideas aren't dependent on any other idea, but are open to unlimited connections. And these connections are formed in your brain based on your own experiences, learnings, and how you process information. The concept of atomic ideas actually comes from Niklas Luhmann's revolutionary Zettelkasten system, a note-taking and knowledge management system that involved storing information on index cards or Zettels in boxes or crates. Because each note made perfect sense on its own and was not dependent on its original context, if Luhmann went back to it in the future, he would perfectly understand what he was trying to convey when he wrote the note. And he could easily link them to an unlimited number of other atomic notes containing atomic ideas. And at the end of the day, the purpose of the entire system was to break down complex concepts into simpler, easy to connect atomic ideas. Think of it like being on a journey in uncharted land. You have a map, but you don't know the actual route yet. And so you start mapping your journey out. And as you do that, you discover new paths that lead from one new exciting place to the other. And at the end of the journey, you end up with a map of interconnected spots you could easily turn into actual routes. Well, Luhmann did something fairly similar. Years after collecting his notes and creating a web of interconnected atomic ideas, he published hundreds of articles and around 50 books, including his groundbreaking work, Systems Theory. And so what I'm trying to explain here is that this method is particularly good, especially if you're a new creator or are still developing your personal brand. Producing atomic content ideas will help you crystallize your thinking, and the strongest ideas that will resonate and attract your target audience will start to take shape. And through this process, you might also end up developing unique frameworks or theories that can shape your industry and make you stand out, position you as the go-to expert in your field, and ultimately grow your business. Okay, so how does this apply to creating the actual content? Well, it all starts with writing. So when it's time to create content, you never have to start from scratch because you always have a foundation of atomic ideas already written in your note-taking system of choice, which are very easy to use both as connections or as building blocks for a fresh piece of content. For my note-taking system of choice, I personally use Obsidian, which is arguably the best tool to build a Zettelkasten or atomic ideas system on, but any other tool that has a bi-directional linking feature works. If you use Notion, this feature is a bit limited, but it can still work. An atomic piece of content is usually shorter in nature. So if your average YouTube video is around 3,000 words, an atomic video could be 1,000 words. And if your average weekly newsletter is 1,000 words, an atomic newsletter is usually on average like 200 to 300 words. And that's not just because you want it to be short, but because when something gets too long, its main message gets diluted, and that's a threat to that atomic nature that you want in your content. Now, let's talk about how you can apply atomic writing across different social media content types. First of all, let's start with YouTube. Atomic content is fantastic for YouTube, especially if you're a new creator. By publishing this more compact atomic content, you don't run into the risk of putting all your effort on one massive, very complex video that might flop. If you're writing a script and are already over around 2,000 words, do this exercise. Ask yourself, could I actually develop part of this script into separate videos, which would make sense on their own, but potentially, not necessarily, but potentially would be connected to the other videos, creating a watch loop. By creating shorter atomic videos, you have the chance of being more consistent with your posting schedule and could potentially post more frequently. But even more importantly, you can easily create a loop of bingeable videos and gather data on what works and what doesn't. And this is particularly useful if you are still in the early phases of a YouTube channel, testing out content ideas. In fact, it's a format I'm thinking of adopting for my own channel for some of my upcoming videos. Creating atomic videos is also a wonderful way to share your brand's message with your audience, because every video can be dedicated to one atomic idea, and the sum of all of these ideas will be representative of your overall brand's message. And to be honest, so far I haven't come across any creators publishing atomic videos but one. His name is Alto. I think his latest videos serve as the perfect example. So he publishes short 3 to 4 minutes videos daily, and in each video he tackles one very specific atomic idea. His videos are short and simple and with very minimal post-production and editing. If interesting enough and well scripted, an atomic video really doesn't need any extra bells and whistles to capture and retain attention. This format allows Jay to publish more frequently, and I have to say that the ideas he shares are quite interesting. His views are actually really good for a channel his size, posting so frequently. There is, however, one potential downside to this method on YouTube, and that is if your video ends up being under 8 minutes long, you won't benefit from any mid-roll ads. However, if monetizing through AdSense isn't your main goal and you're more focused on selling digital products, monetizing through coaching, or perhaps even brand deals, then that won't be a big issue at all. Now let's have a look at email marketing. Atomic writing in emails is probably my favorite application of this concept. In my honest opinion, we need to stop obsessing over and conforming to the weekly newsletter. I'm not talking about frequency or word count, but rather about the format. Weekly newsletters tend to be super long and full of unrelated ideas and links, which, to be honest, can be really overwhelming for the reader, especially if you're trying to sell a specific product or service through your email marketing. An atomic newsletter, on the other hand, is typically much shorter, between 100 to 300 words, and focuses on one idea, one link, and one product or service, and if needed, one call to action. And this kind of simplicity is incredibly effective. Ben Settle, who is a copywriter, was one of the pioneers of this short atomic email writing method. And his rule of thumb was that, quoting, the length of an email should be the length of a woman's skirt. Now, I don't particularly like this metaphor it chose, but I would say your atomic email should be on average readable without having to scroll. And I recently noticed even the biggest creators are adopting this more compact atomic format. Check out Alex Hormozi's newsletter. Each email he sends averages about 200 words, but each email contains a very specific message, which he calls Mozi Money Minute. There are other examples of atomic newsletters, and some examples are the newsletter by Jonathan Stark, from whom I first learned the concept of writing atomic newsletters, and then Louis Grenier. Also have a case studies walkthrough of his newsletter. If you're interested in it, I have a video about it, which I will link somewhere up here and in the description box down below. Keep in mind though that those 200 to 300 words you write matter. If they're filled with nothingness, then this will defeat the purpose. Which takes me to the next point. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and especially X are already full of atomic content, whether it's a reel or a carousel or a thread. As long as it's expressing one specific idea that doesn't need any particular context or connections to be fully understood, then you've created an atomic piece of content. But as you know, short doesn't necessarily mean atomic and vice versa. The biggest problem you may encounter when developing an atomic idea is to try to make it short, when instead you should be focusing on the quality of the idea first. And this poses a risk of creating shallow ideas, which, let's be fair, short form content platforms are full of. You want the content to be clear and compact, but not to the point where it loses its value. It's the depth of your thinking that will make even the smallest idea stick. The good news is that there is a way to ensure that your ideas are truly valuable to your audience. And it all starts with developing a fresh perspective for your content, which is what the next video will all be about. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.